Jack Levin's father disappeared when he was very young, and he grew up in a very poor household. As the website says, although he spent most of his childhood in poverty, Jack was blessed with unmatched good looks. His popularity with women is what made him earn money. He went from being poor to being a commodity himself. Trading cards, action figures, it all sells out. He was scouted to join F-Zero so that his good looks could attract a younger audience. So basically, he exists to pump money into the F-Zero racing. He is, according to the website, the poster child for F-Zero racing. Due to his father having disappeared, he is described as having adopted a father role, even tending to his mother. In a sense, he is his father. Both of his sisters and mother worship him, so they conclude that he will be worshipped by women everywhere. Dr. Stewart's father died when he was very young in a terrible accident at the F-Zero X Grand Prix, but rumors began to surface that it wasn't an accident, but murder. Determined to learn the truth, Dr. Stewart repaired his father's F-Zero machine, the Golden Fox, and joined the F-Zero X GP. As he searches for clues for his father's death, he also tries hard to live up to his name. The one thing Dr. Stewart never counted on was that he inherited some of his father's natural racing talent. So, basically, he has his father's talent, his father's repaired machine, and tries to live up to his father's name. In a sense, he has become his father. He is portrayed as a ladies' man and wishes to honor beautiful women everywhere. The F-Zero X website speaks of an accident that took place in the past, where many people died. F-Zero GX, however, speaks of an accident in the past, referred to as the huge accident, where nobody died. Nobody died because Dr. Stewart put his skills as a paramedic to use. In the website version, called the Horrific Grand Finale, almost everyone, died. And Dr. Stewart's father would presumably be one of them, judging by how his death is described. The huge accident almost comically avoids the pain of the horrific grand finale. Dr. Stewart doesn't lose a father in the event, despite his father already being dead. Instead, he saves everyone. The pilot who took the worst damage, Mighty Gazelle, doesn't die. He simply transforms into a machine. This is presumably thanks to Dr. Stewart's skills. So he doesn't just repair his father's machine to then inhabit it, but repairs the only real casualty, the only death, Gazelle, as a person that inhabits machineness. His cyborg nature, acquired after having brushed death, allows him to not fear it. Deathborn's name implies he is born from death. He dies and then is born again. He is born from death as a machine, since he has been brought back to life by exchanging his real body parts for mechanical ones. Since the huge accident, several F-Zero pilots have turned up missing. In all of the missing persons investigations conducted by the Space Police, Deathborn was the primary suspect. Deathborn is plotting to take over the universe. His plan is to obtain the ultimate power that would allow him to determine life and death on every star as he sees fit. Pico has a past. The problem is he doesn't want anyone to know about it. In the war on his planet, his unit was responsible for the assassination of over 70 top officials, so he is associated with massacre. The huge accident is said to have been caused by his dangerous driving. The huge accident had no deaths, but the horrific grand finale was definitely a massacre. Dr. Stewart's dad died in that accident, but rumors began to surface that it wasn't an accident, but murder. Rumor has it that Pico is also an infamous hitman, someone who would kill not for his own intentions, but following those of others with intentions to kill. Gazelle is dead. Racing makes him feel alive. He just barely escaped death and was resurrected as a cyborg. Because he is a cyborg, he has been able to polish his racing skills without fear of death. All this, from his in-game profile, suggests he didn't just survive, he actually died and transcended death. The same way that, for example, Beastman was devoured by a beast and transcended it. The horrific grand finale, however, doesn't include Mighty Gazelle's death. The character who fills his role of the heroic racer who barely escapes death is the Skull. The Skull used to be a pilot in the old days of the Grand Prix, 2 centuries ago, when the race was a violent, bloody spectacle. He died and was reborn due to a combination of science and black magic. Like Mighty Gazelle, he is no longer afraid of death. I would like to note how not only does the horrific accident get presented as a violent event in the past, but that the past itself, the early days of F-Max racing before F-Zero, gets presented as a violent and bloody time. The present we now know, seems to have its origins in violence and bloodiness. It is Deathborn. According to the first F-Zero manual, after humanity's entry into contact with different extraterrestrial civilizations, trade, technology transfer, and cultural interchange were carried out on an interplanetary basis. The multi-billionaires who earned their enormous wealth through intergalactic trade, while satisfied with their rich lifestyles, also yearned for new entertainment to stimulate their lazy lives. So they invested their wealth in the creation of exciting racing competitions. To make them exciting, they made the courses truly dangerous, so it was a brutal and bloody event. The audience was first angered by this, then grew used to it, and then demanded even more excitement in the race. So the boredom of multi-billionaires, grown accustomed to all the pleasures of life, makes them invest money in an even greater excitement. This greater excitement then becomes boring for the non-wealthy, who demand even more flight from unsatisfaction. According to the F-Zero X manual, the predecessors to F-Zero, F-Max, the era the Skull was a legend in, became influenced by wealthy X-space merchants. They thought that a fast and violent race would be a great way to get people to gamble. So F-Zero exists as a wealth-generating engine. The F-Zero Maximum Velocity manual says that in the future days when Falcon and the rest are legends from the past, the conservative business practices of the billionaires have put a lot of high-priced space pilots out of work, and so there has come a rise in the number of daring men and women looking to get rich quick, the only way left to them, as F-Zero pilots. So, F-Zero gets presented as both something that is financed out of the boredom produced by extreme wealth and financed out of a calculated desire to obtain more wealth by tempting people to gamble. Both accounts contradict each other but reinforce each other too. The boredom produced by comfortable material conditions is solved in the game by excitement, and this excitement needs to be funded by money. This excitement is accessed by going to the limits of material comfort, that is, towards discomfort, death. The Maximum Velocity manual suggests that this feedback loop of the wealthy becoming more wealthy to protect their lifestyles has made it difficult to make money other than by racing in F-Zero. The manual suggests it is only space pilots who are in this bind, but since other pilot profiles, such as those of Drac and Roger Buster, make it seem as if obtaining an F-Zero machine is a difficult thing economically, leading them to steal them or repair them, and leading other pilots to depend on inheriting their parents' machines, it feels as if F-Zero pilots are already a fairly wealthy group of people. If that was so, then F-Zero racing might truly be the only place where great amounts of wealth get channeled, with all classes below F-Zero pilots being not only vastly materially poorer than the space merchants, but unable to improve their material conditions other than by working, directly or indirectly, for those merchants. It also suggests that the reason F-Zero exists is because it's successful, so that perhaps gambling is the main source of material pleasure and excitement for people. So, the more they gamble, the wealthier the space wealthy become, and the more everyone has to work exclusively for them. So, both work and leisure time are pumping money into the same place. The exponentially growing accumulation of money in one same place, this place being F-Zero. Also, this place called F-Zero is presented in the game as more than just a race. Captain Falcon, for instance, promises he will race forever to defend good against evil.
The evil forces will never get their hands on this belt. I'll keep winning.
Now, I submit that commonly we wouldn't think that racing in a Grand Prix, furthermore racing forever, without end, would defend the universal ideals of good, love, etc. So the Grand Prix here seems like a metaphor for something else. It seems as if it's a story about humanity that is being told in the visual metaphor of the racetrack. The drivers are people. F-Zero is, I claim, a microcosmic expression of the rest of the world. The same way certain literature that takes place inside houses, little towns, etc., is meant to be a representation of the whole of society. The town mayor represents the ruling class. The town farmer represents all farmers in the world, etc. If that is the case, then the F-Zero pilots may, under my interpretation, represent all sorts of professions, not just pilots. They are people as a whole. F-Zero gambling, spending money on F-Zero to derive pleasure, may be simply the act of spending money to obtain pleasure, regardless of the object of spending. And racing, desperately racing to reach the top of the pyramid, to become wealthy, brings power and gives you control over the world. The kind of control that bores you to death and forces you to seek things that will make you lose control, like the excitement of accidents, unexpected obstacles, death. Racing is about moving forward, always forward and never looking back. It is an apt metaphor for time, the inexorable movement of time from death towards death, in my opinion. F-Zero, however, is not Formula 1 racing. It is faster than the speed of sound, thus metaphorically beyond time, zero, the present moment itself. That is where all labor is conducted, in eternity, eternally molding the material world into a new structure.